Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 15 of Casual Watch Talk. I'm joined by my co-host Chris. How have you been, Chris?
Pretty good, Sam.
And we have a special guest as well. So we have TEEJ, who is our sort of resident military expert on the channel. You might have seen me interview him a couple of months ago on the channel. So how have you been?
Oh, great. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. I actually saw your announcement about a special guest, and I was wondering who it was. And then I'm humbled to be that special guest. So thank you for having me on.
Turns out it's you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
No, we're very happy to have you. Very happy to have you on. We're experimenting with the Zoom audio to record this, and as everybody in the nation now is using Zoom, we're hopeful that the connection will keep strong as we go through this. So let's dive in here. So as customary, we like to do our what watch have you been wearing. So I'll start with our guest. So TJ, what watch have you been wearing most this week?
Yes, Sam. So exclusively for quite a bit, I've been wearing my sterile homage to the RAF Mark 11 pilot's watch. So this is a 50s era design. And the homage comes from San Martin, which, as I understand it, is a small brand out of Hong Kong. But it's a sterile design. It's available in quartz and Seiko Auto. I chose the quartz just for me. Accuracy is super important. So, hassle-free aspect of quartz, roughly the same price, is about 150. And happened to have it shipped from Hong Kong just before the coronavirus, sort of really hit the media. And so it was kind of shipping from China. I actually left the package alone for a while, caution, and wiped down the box. It's a little bit crazy, but just at the beginning of the whole thing. But really the watch is amazing. And there aren't a lot of models out there that use this design. And there's some pretty interesting things about it. One of the features I like most so far is the fact that it has lume essentially in the cardinal position. So 12, 3, 6, and 9 has really bright rectangular bars of lume on the hour index, and the other hours have a very slim lume line on them. So essentially in the middle of the night, you really just see the 4 cardinal headings. And at first I thought that it'd be really difficult to tell the time at night, but I actually find it better than others. It's just super clear and no issue telling 10:30 from 11:30, that kind of thing. So as far as legibility, I've never seen anything like it. And I think your countrymen in the UK in the late 40s, I think they took all the lessons learned from World War II and produced the ideal simple pilot watch. It's amazing. And it's no wonder it survived into the 80s. It's just a great design. And
you also posted it not only on our Facebook page, but on the new Casual Watch Talk Facebook group. So saw pictures of that, checking out the lume shot. Pretty cool lume shot that you got there.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to share these things. Hopefully, there are not too many posts there, but just as things pop into my head and cool things to share, this one was certainly exciting about it. And I found some old, reference to the watch from some RAF publication. It's probably a maintenance manual or something, but it talked about the watch as an aerial navigation watch and just provided some old specs about it. And I thought that was kind of a neat slice of history.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you always associate CWC watches with that kind of era of British military. But it's glad to see that they've led on with that design. And Chris, thanks for mentioning the new Facebook group. Please join. I think I've added everyone who was a fan of the Casual Watch Reviewer page. So please join us over there for some more watch conversation. TJ, have you had a watch obsession this week?
Well, that is the watch obsession for me. I mean, I really can't get over it. I ended up putting it on the NATO strap that you featured on your recent show, a video you made, the Toxic NATO Rogue. It's a thicker weave, but otherwise NATO, so essentially a Zulu weave in a NATO design. And it just seems like for an RAF watch, the classic gray was the right call. And I keep trying every once in a while to put another strap on it, and I just immediately put it back on the gray because it just works just right. So the combination of the two is just amazing, and I am totally obsessed with it.
So it's cool. Like a 2-for-1 there.
Yeah, I'm so happy with it. And and I know you've addressed this before, but I think it's important to mention that to find joy in something that's affordable is a wonderful thing, because as in-house movements become the rage, and the trend is for the big brands is increasingly to be more exclusive and luxurious, I find, happiness in the hobby, finding something that is exciting and has some history to it. And I know the San Martin doesn't have history, but the design itself does.
Mm-hmm.
And just to find something that I can look at and be completely obsessed with for $100 and some, that's pretty special.
That's great. That's great.
That's really cool. Yeah, I know they've do some homages to vintage Seikos as well. I know certainly Jody at Just One More Watches made the joke once or twice about them really showing Seiko up with not only their designs but their build quality. So Chris, what's been your watch obsession, or what have you been wearing? Sorry.
Yes. So I switched over to the Zin 103, my Bell & Ross Zin 103. And it had to go on the NATO strap today. So, and I took a shot for Instagram, and it's one of those watches. It's a, Pilot's chronograph, and it's one of those watches that just absolutely changes when you pop it on a NATO. It just goes from chronograph dress watch to we're ready for the mission, And so today was, we've been alternating going into work and making sure all of our work from home folks are connected. And so that was this morning was like, yep, we're ready to go to that and do that. So pop that on the wrist. And yeah, nothing like just a olive green NATO purpose built. It really changes the look of the watch. So that's what I'm wearing. For my obsession, I posted this also on the Facebook group, and it's cool. TJ was talking about like inexpensive watches that bring you joy, and this is definitely one of those. I've seen this watch in person, but I came across a sale on the Blue Dial Orient. It's I don't know, it has a nickname or it has an actual name.
Like the Bambino is it like a Bambino?
It isn't. Yeah, it's like a Bambino. It's not the actual Bambino. It's the RA. It's Orient's crazy RAAC0E0. I mean, crazy whatever.
Yeah.
But simple Blue Dial. 40 mil watch, 20 mil lugs, and it has that simple dial, indices, no Arabic numerals, gorgeous looking, and it was super on sale, $99, and I said I have to get it.
No, I certainly like the look of it, and thanks for posting that on the Facebook group. Well, I guess it's my turn. I've been mainly wearing, actually I've been working from home as well, so I've been wearing a G-Shock, and then also, of course, I just did the upload on straps for the Tudor, so I had a lot of fun putting different straps on the Tudor. And going back to that comment I made a few weeks ago about selling the Speedmaster because it was so pristine, well, I have definitely scratched the Tudor now. I mean, this thing is, but I'm cool with it. But that looks awesome on a host of straps, so I've been wearing that one.
That was a fun video because you kind of showed not only the straps, but it really showed off the versatility of that watch. You look at it and you kind of think, well, with the gold and maybe not, but no, it looks great on a whole host of stuff.
And thanks to TJ as well, he sent me two of the straps featured in that video. So the Toxic NATO, nice. And then that single pass crown and buckle, the chevron, which I wasn't lying in that video. That's one of the number one comments in that unboxing is where did you get that single pass? So thanks for that, TJ.
Well, Sam, which one of those straps did you settle on then after all said and done?
I've still got it on that cuff strap.
Really?
Yeah, and I need to take it off it because it looks awesome. I don't know how practical it is, though. I mean, I'm still obsessed with that Tarantino film. I think Brad Pitt, fantastic in that film. And I just think about, I don't know if you've seen it, but the ending is just so amazing. Like, Tarantino makes you wait for the ending, for sure. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I want to put it on that alligator strap that Mikola sent me over. But what I've done is I've bought a deployant clasp for it, just like a cheap one off eBay, because I'm worried that the buckle's going to like damage because it's real alligator. I made a mistake, said it was Horween alligator in the review, and I don't know why I said that because Horween's clearly cowhide leather.
Right.
But that's what I've been wearing, and my obsession, I would say, well, that Citizen that I've got incoming, that Japanese only Citizen, I'm looking forward to that coming in. And I think that's really it. Oh, I did buy another watch, and I don't think I've told either of you this, but, and this might seem weird, this is going to sound weird to a lot of people, but as soon as they postponed the Tokyo Olympics, I had to get that Tokyo Swatch, the 2020.
Oh, that's a smart move, Sam.
Because I'm thinking it's such an awful time at the moment in the world. That watch is going to be a memory of, so I don't forget this time. Right. So I wonder if Swatch will do a 2021, sorry. Last week's show, we kind of went over the coronavirus. We're not going to mention it again in this show. We're going to try and keep this upbeat, but that's not trying to do a disservice to what's happening at the moment. It's just that we're trying to do a bit of escapism, I think, on this show today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both for that. Let's dive into the news stories. First, I wanted to start with a very grown-up and serious one. I don't know if you've seen this on Watch Pro have just released some analysis on watch sales for 2019.
Okay.
Really interesting who's grown and who's decreased. And Chris, not to give us credit or that the podcast might have affected Omega, but wait until I get to the Omega.
Oh, boy.
The Omega.
Oh, boy.
So first up, Rolex's sales in 2019 were up 3%.
For the year, 3% in 2019.
3% for the year, which is actually good in comparison to some of the others. So they actually made $5.2 billion. But did they make that all on Datejusts?
They could be double that, Sam, if they just gave people what they want, right?
Right.
Exactly. So that was an interesting one. One that did very well, Cartier, was up 10.5%. There's a real shocker in a minute, but I'll just go through the ones that decreased. Well, they've put Omega as flatlined because they only increased their sales by 0.6%. That is almost flatline. So this is, I mean, we've been chatting about this on the podcast a couple of times, haven't we, about the direction of Omega?
Now this is sales number. This is sales.
Yes.
Numbers. This is okay. So it's interesting. I mean, like per volume, by volume.
No, it's percentage
number
increase.
of pieces.
Yeah.
Number of pieces completely tanked. Number of sales all the way up, percentage of money.
Well, that's it. You're actually joking about something, but wait until I give you the last one.
Okay.
So the ones that decreased in sales, TAG were down 9.3%. TJ, I'll ask you about this one. IWC, which is considered an aviation watch, their sales decreased 8.7%. Now, Federico predicted this, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from, but I mean, I actually have a lot of respect for their designs because they stay with legibility. So I've actually kind of pinged on some of the Breitling models for being illegible, but I really admire the fact that IWC's watches continue to be ultra legible. The problem is that how much are you willing to spend for a tool? They're an ultimate tool, but when you're buying for luxury, is that what you're really looking for? So it's almost like they're straggling two different realms and trying to combine them. And I guess maybe those that are interested in spending $5,000 to $7,000 for something luxurious don't want something that looks like a really hardcore cockpit tool, like their Top Gun model, which I love, but it may not satisfy the luxury buyer that much. Yeah, so I wonder if that's part of it.
Could well be, because also I think, they're still mainly using ETA-based movements, aren't they? And its entry price for an IWC is, I think, probably in the $3,000 to $4,000 mark.
Well, I thought they were transitioning, at least starting into the in-house movement trend. For me, as a person who bought a Speedmaster 10 years ago, what appealed to me about that watch was that I didn't care about where the movement came from. I cared about that it was essentially a high-end tool. And the in-house movement trend is sort of taking that away from people, because now they're saying, well, we're going to charge you double for a very prestigious, luxurious movement. But some of the buyers aren't looking for a prestigious, luxurious, exclusive movement. They're looking for an optimum mechanical tool. I know I was sort of priced out of that realm, whereas I bought my Speedmaster for under $3,000. Right now, I wouldn't get one. And I think so I think that's going to hit the tool watch, Swiss tool watch market pretty much across the board, because if you're buying a tool watch, are you going to pay twice as much for a tool because the movement was made a certain place?
I wonder how much of the market, or how much of the industry is really shooting themselves in the foot a little bit there, because I hear all the time, like, well, they don't make their movements. Put an LS1 and a Miata and we'll have a good time. Put a decent movement in. And so, this push for in-house, and thinking that maybe that all of us wanted, or that it's always necessary in order to, rise up above the, other brands. I feel like they're kind of pushing it, because you're right. Your $2,800 becomes $3,800, becomes $4,800, becomes, and then you're like, oh, well, it's a decorated in-house movement. How much engineering did that cost?
This will go to our main topic, which is about microbrands, which microbrands are really proving that you can make decent ETA-based watches. Anyway, I know both of you haven't seen this article, so I'm going to see if you can guess this one. Chris, are you looking at it now?
I don't know.
So I'm going to see if you can guess this one. So this is a small watch company. I'll give you a couple of clues. They made 900 million Swiss francs last year. They increased their sales by 181%. Can you guess who the watch company is?
Swiss watch company.
Swiss watch company. They went from 19th to position 8.
19th to 8th.
Yeah, on the most important watch companies list.
180% in sales.
181% in sales, yeah. It might have something to do with certain NFL players that might or might not have got fined for wearing these.
Oh, really?
Brand ambassadors, the likes of Sylvester Stallone.
Richard Mille?
Yes.
Richard Mille?
Richard Mille, yeah.
Oh, all right.
So it's incredible, really, isn't it? Because you think that's 900 million Swiss francs worth of Richard Mille watches.
Wow.
Do they have in-house movements though?
They do, but they're made of sapphire.
Right. Pressed carbon, pressed diamond.
Yes,
carbon.
yeah.
I'll settle for nothing else.
Right, exactly. Wow. I think I've heard this from maybe Federico, or some other, like, just, will these stay relevant? Like, will these stick around? Will this brand be? But I mean, that growth, sheesh, cash that check.
That Sylvester Stallone watch they made, I thought that was going to finish him off. That $1 million.
I know, right? Oh god.
It does have a compass on it, so
yeah, a compass and a pocket watch, and it's it's.
The next story, because I'm so down with the kids and up with popular culture, I noticed this week that Kanye West, Kim Kardashian have reunited their feud with Taylor Swift.
Oh,
I don't know if you've been keeping track of this, you two, but I mean, this was big news. The watch YouTube community is not without its rivalries as well, and it seems that our own Chris might have started a watch rivalry with Just Bluefish watches today.
Yeah, I know.
With his epic rebuttal of his last video. So, Chris, explain yourself.
Yeah. So I was watching some YouTube, and a guy over at Bluefish who was checking out. And he was talking about how dirty your watches can get, which is totally true, and we're in a situation where, we need to clean these things. And he was going on and on about, how much dirt, and reading studies of how dirty it could get and this sort of thing. And then he just is he just swears off NATO. He's it's I'm not wearing a nylon strap. I'm not doing that for a while. And then and also leather. I mean, I get him with leather, but I'm it's nylon. And so, I was all right, well, I just made a video where what you do with your nylon watch strap, your NATO watch strap, is you take it off, and then you place it around your waist on your belt loop of your jeans that you're about to throw in the washing machine, and then just throw them in the washing machine. It's going to be fine. And then tumble dry, and all the dirtiness will be gone. So, so I was a little oh, geez, don't swear off NATO totally. Maybe a little overboard with the viral cleanliness, but important, but also, everybody, PSA, just take your NATO straps, wash your NATO straps, throw them in the washing machine, they'll be fine.
Yeah. So TJ, what did you? I don't know if you saw that video, but I mean, you're a big NATO fan. I don't suppose you're seeing this as a potential issue.
I see any threat to the NATO as a threat to me personally, Sam, because I first wore them in 2009 in Afghanistan before they were cool, of course. And I fell in love, and I never looked back. And, for me, I always wear waterproof watches, especially if I'm deployed. I don't even take it off. So it just goes in the shower, and that's how it gets clean. So it gets washed when I get washed. And then if my watch isn't waterproof, then it's, when I wash my hands or whatever. So it's like your clothes, I see it as, right? I mean, it's material that can be washed. I don't worry about it, and it's super comfortable. And just wash your NATO, man.
He also used, he'll probably get some, I haven't checked back in the comments. He'll probably get some comments of this. He also used dish soap to wash his watch. I think he just did the bracelet, but he just like took dish soap to a toothbrush, which is fine. But dish soap is pretty heavy duty. Like it's a heavy concentrated detergent. And I'm sure there's going to be some watchmakers that are like, whoa, easy on the heavy detergent. Like it's the same reason why you shouldn't, like, don't wash your car with Dawn. Like, do not do that. Like, you'll strip all the wax off of it. You'll strip everything off of it. Same thing. I wouldn't wash a waterproof watch with Dawn unless it was, maybe a G-Shock. But
yeah, I use foaming hand soap. I think that, it's real light. That tends to work.
Yeah, laundry in the laundry, or a soap that you would use on your hands.
Yeah, good call. Well, before we jump into our main topic here, let's just pause momentarily for a quick ad break. Welcome back. Our main topic today, and this is actually one from TEEJ, so thanks for this, was discussing micro brands. Now you had a good take on the micro brand industry. We briefly alluded to it before about does the proliferation of micro brands, do you think it's going to lead to the bigger watch companies making their own in-house movement? So that's a good subject we should start with. And also, I'm interested to know, if there is an economic downturn, do the micro brands proliferate, or do you think is it going to be like the quartz crisis over again? Do we think with the proliferation of micro brands, is that going to push the bigger brands more to this in-house mentality?
Yeah, what I was thinking with that, Sam, is that, I think people made the point that, okay, so suddenly with the very first few micro brands, I think we're using ETA movements. And that's probably part of the reason why there was discussion of limiting their distribution, because for less than $1,000, people were realizing you can get something pretty amazing from one of these newer brands. I don't think we even said micro brand back then. But then people argued, if I can get this for $1,000, why are you charging me $3,000? And so I think that some of the companies like IWC, Omega, Breitling thought, well, do we want to be more like them or more like Rolex? And they realized they wanted to be more on the higher end. And so I think it kind of drove them that direction. And so that raises questions about, was that kind of the driving force? Is that the sustainable trend? And what does it do to the in-betweeners, people use the term mid-tier, Longines, Hamilton, folks that are in the 1,000 to 2,000 range. Given the quality you can get with a Miyota 9015 at $600, what's leading someone to spend $1,500? I can understand the person buying the Rolex because they just made partner at their law firm. I think that's a different dynamic. But among,
right.
I just think, are these all independently sustainable segments, or will one of them put pressure on the other? So that's kind of the question I had.
It's interesting that dynamic. I'm thinking also the limitation. So Swatch owns ETA. So for their mid tier, they're, like you mentioned, Longines, Hamilton. They're not gonna run out of that. And the other thing that they can do is, it's kind of a trick, and it's a trap. And I'm sure there are videos. Actually, Sam, I think you might have even made a video on this, or we had a discussion about this, where, of course, Hamilton can have the H10 movement and call it in-house, but like, who's making it for them? Well, ETA is making it for them. It's the same, it's their designs, that their stuff that they already had access to. Same thing with Longines. So they can just press a button and just brand that quote unquote ETA movement that they used to sell at everybody as an in-house movement. So it's like, so now when you unwrap some of that marketing trick, then it's even more so where you're like, well, wait, why can't I get this for $1,500 when you're selling it for $3,000? That's sort of a marketing trick. So I don't know where that stops. And then what I think they're driving is micro brands now. I think where they used to lean towards, of course we're going to have an ETA movement, or of course we're going to have the fine finish, et cetera, et cetera. I think now they're more microbrands out there. They're just like, yep, we're using the NH35, we're using the basic Seiko movement, or we're using the Miyota, or the top level Miyota, and and it's great and it's accurate, and away you go. So it's really going to force that more so. It's going to force that division more so.
I think right now the Hamiltons and the Longines aren't afraid, because the micro brands are all small volume and they're targeting the forums and the enthusiasts. But eventually the word's going to get out, because social media being what it is, friend of a friend is going to see that, what is that watch? Oh, it's a Laurier or whatever it is, and they're going to see that that's a great looking watch. The enthusiast is going to say, yeah, it is an amazing watch. I love it. It's $400 whatever dollars. So I mean, I just can't, and I don't know if the micro brands are willing to go to that volume. But I think the mid-tier brands should be worried about that.
It's funny what you were saying about the brands like Omega and etc., IWC going in-house to emulate Rolex. But the one thing that Rolex, it's not just that it's an in-house movement, it's that really Rolex has its selection of watches that it makes, and it knows its segment and it goes for it. And maybe they'll put diamonds on it, maybe they change the colour, but Omega's trying to compete with them by coming up with these like titanium movements, and we've got a titanium case James Bond watch that's $9,000 and things like that. So I guess they're wanting to emulate Rolex, but not playing by their playbook. I don't think, of just have your core.
And I think TJ called it the celebration of the big sale, getting the Rolex for the celebration of the big sale. That's what Omega wants, but they're just looking at the they're just looking at the data sheet. And they're not emulating what that actually means as a brand. So it's funny. It's like, well, people buy Rolex because it's a big celebration of a big event, and it has an in-house movement, and it has sapphire, and it's a stainless steel bracelet. And so like they're just like checking off boxes. Like, well, we can do that. We can do in-house movement. We can do stainless steel. We can do, we can make a really accurate COSC certified watch. Fantastic. And then the question, like in the sales team is like, well, how come it isn't selling? And you're like, because none of that matters to someone who's buying a Rolex.
Yeah, and then Omega do bring back one of their icons with that 321 movement, and the fans are like, yes, thank you. We have been asking for this and we appreciate it. And then they're like, oh, well, first out the block, that's platinum and it's $50,000. So if you want it in steel, that's $14,000, which RRP, if you could get a Daytona, is less than what a Daytona's RRP is, and the Daytona's just a stunning watch.
To switch to talking about the micro brands themselves, one thing that is going to be in their favor is, yes, I believe that we are going to have a slowdown, an economic. There's going to be hurt. We're gonna see that directly, but if you are a small company, like I'm thinking like Notice. I think Notice is maybe a handful of people in Los Angeles. And if you're a company like Notice, you're nimble, you're able to change quickly, you can ramp up your stuff, you can also ramp down your stuff. You don't have to make as many pieces, etc. Whereas a giant company, Longines or any of the Swatch companies, you have warehouse people, you have logistics people, you have shipping people, you have, there are people that work. I'm sure there are 100 people that work for Longines that don't even touch watches. So in this situation, in a downturn economy, I think micro brands are going to have an edge there because they can be nimble, but it's going to be a fight to get people to open their wallets.
Oh, I'd agree, actually.
Yeah, I think another point to make on that is that the micro brands are connected to the enthusiasts, right? People like us. And they've got a pretty direct access to the enthusiasts through the forums. So they seem very responsive. And in fact, they can reach out and say, hey, thinking of this new design, it can kind of get interest. And they'll know before they ever start production whether or not they've got enough interest. So connectivity and responsiveness, right. And especially if someone comes up with a design that you love and in fact lets you participate in updating it or changing it, and then finally produces something for $600 that you love. Amazing. And sometimes I think the bigger brands, the enthusiast is sitting there on the sidelines saying, why didn't they add this feature? Why did they add it? Why did they add a date, at 4:00 or whatever our pet peeves are, right?
Yeah,
or they'll add, one of my biggest pet peeve is when the numerals on the Pilot watch are chromed. That just they need to be loomed, right? I don't want it to be shiny.
Yeah.
And so when a company does that, like, you just sit there and cringe, and they're not talking to the enthusiast. They're just talking to their design team or whomever. And so I think that that's a strength of the micro community, is that they're reaching out to us, and so we will sustain them because they're going to produce something we want.
Agree. And you see some of these online sellers, Long Island Watch, etc., that are starting to stock these smaller brands. So it's not just the direct-to-consumer route that they have anymore. They actually are able to go through some of these big online retailers as well. So it's kind of legitimizing the brands alongside like Seiko and Citizen. You can buy them through the site. I suppose when these sort of smaller micro brands like Laurier, when you start seeing them on Amazon as a seller, that might be an interesting, and you can compare them.
It'll happen too, because I think if you have the large brands, and I see this with companies all the time, if you're retail and you waited to get on Amazon and you're like, oh, we're going to sell on our website and we're not going to do Amazon, right? You waited, and someone can swoop in there and you can get, into that market, into that supply chain. I mean,
Laurier just comes to mind. I feel like they're only hampered by the rate that they can produce them, because people are in a frenzy about buying Laurier watches I'm on their emailing list, and they're always emailing saying, look, we're nearly there, we're nearly going to release it, and so on. And I think they would be shifting a lot more units if they weren't necessarily hampered by their current supply chain, which obviously as they get bigger, then that won't become so much of an issue. Now, an interesting question about these micro brands. Obviously, in the current climate, the traditional supply routes between China have been disrupted. I know they really want to make a watch that is 100% US made. I know Detroit Mint, Dave there spoke to me a couple of times about making 100%, but they just don't have. There's maybe a watch assembly plant in Chicago, and I think it's the old Elgin plant. I suspect you can obviously get straps made over here, but I think you'd struggle to make a complete watch at scale here. So I wonder whether that will shift now that the microbrand philosophy has proved itself out, whether the US will then become a real powerhouse again, like it was in the pre-70s.
Are there particular components that are sort of the long pole in the tent, in a case or gaskets, or what? Because I would imagine one of those companies would still source a movement from Japan or from the Swiss, whether it's quartz or mechanical. But so what is it in the case or the crystal, and what part is the key part?
I think the key is the movement, honestly, and also the casing as well, to get the level of machining and the level of prototyping on the cases as well might be an issue, because I know Fossil own that STP line, but they must be made. They're an ETA clone, but I think that those movements must be made in Switzerland, because I think they say Swiss made the STP movements. I don't think Fossil make them in the US.
So then 60, and Swiss made saying that 60% of the watch, 60% of the movement, and all the stuff that goes into it was made in Switzerland. So
yeah, I know there's some small, like Weiss, he makes his own movements, or certainly heavily modifies existing movements in LA. But
yeah, I think he's building parts and pieces here. I mean, certainly assembling, and there's a couple, like Notice I mentioned, assembling here. They're proud of assembled in Los Angeles. I don't know how much of a marketing benefit that has. I'd be kind of curious from a standpoint of, if I was on the board and I said, okay, so we're going to do a Swiss made watch that's, has a Swiss movement in it, and we're going to print Swiss made on the dial because we have the facilities and we can get those, or we can branch out and do a true American made, US manufacturing. Because I think besides the technology to make the hairsprings, it's interesting. Like all of those, we have access to a ton of those machines. They have new EDM, wire CNC processes that can make the tiny little gears. So someone could spin it up fairly easily. As far as we have the technology, I'm not saying easily, like I'm sure there's a huge investment here. Like this is lots and lots and lots of money. So maybe that's the key. And if you just look at, like, if you're the marketing department and you say like, okay, well, people are calling out for a US made watch, which I think is true,
Yeah.
but it's going to cost $300 million of, investment into a manufacturing facility. Who's ready to pop that down? And unfortunately, those facilities, which used to be here in the 80s and 90s, I mean, that all that stuff, we still make a lot of the equipment, but we don't have the factories that are.
Yeah, I wonder if this will change as like 3D printing when you can start 3D printing metal parts with such precision, whether that might change. But
well, I mean, EDM right now, the Swiss watch industry is using it, and it's a game changer because it just you don't have to take you don't have to cut a metal gear anymore. You just have to put this wire next to it and just a blade away with energy, just a blade away that metal. And you can make 1,000 gears in a stack in one shot. So the technology's there, but like, is the investment
when the buyer's desire too, right, Chris? Because I mean, if it took the Japanese quite a while, and you could even argue people still insist on Swiss made, or at least people that are, if you look at Grand Seiko, right, there's quite a few people that just won't buy Japanese movement at that price range because they're going to go Swiss. So even though we as enthusiasts might know or believe that, no, hey, the Seiko movement is just as good. And I'm a recent convert. If I went and bought a watch today, I'd look for a Miyota movement because I think that's manufactured with the spirit that Swiss movements were made in the 60s and 70s. But broadly speaking, you have to think like, where's the demand? And maybe the mid-tier range, that 1,000 to 2,000, maybe that's where someone who wants to buy something really nice, but wants to buy made in America and is willing to have a markup for it and to feel something luxurious. If you look at Shinola, right, I mean, their prices are pretty high. So we enthusiasts kind of balk at that, but other people grabbed onto that. The non-enthusiasts responded to that pretty well. The micros, I think, in their price range can't afford the price increase. Most likely.
Yeah.
I know when I spoke to Ryan and Reagan at Veya, that's why their last mechanical movement, they gave you the option. They said, you can put Swiss movement in it for this price, or you can have a Japanese movement in it for this price. So they gave the choice. It's certainly interesting. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that ghost town that's on the way to Las Vegas. When you do the little tour there, they say, there's $2 million worth of silver to be mined here, but the only problem is it'll cost us $3 million to mine it.
Right. Yeah.
So
probably a little bit of that, especially with the tiny microbrands. And I've had the Miyota movement here in a part in the watch shop, so to speak, in the mod shop. And it keeps, more, I would say, I think it was the 9105, if that's the movement type. My numbers. Much better timekeeping than your base, 7S26 in the SKX. So could regulate better in 3-4 positions, and great movement. And certainly, like, for the money, it would be interesting to see how many people are making the decision of that Japanese movement or Swiss. Having owned older Swiss watches, I'm hard pressed to make that. I seek out Swiss made. It's hard. Once you take a 20-year-old Swiss made chronograph that has never been serviced and you put it on a time grapher and it's running +2, and you're just like, okay, they made them great, they still make them great, and it's it's that tool that you can rely on. So another thing that American manufacturing would have to overcome is, can we make them as good as and or better for the money?
It's a good point, because Grand Seiko have made the best mechanical movement ever, the spring drive. I mean, the accuracy of it, yes, you argue it's a hybrid movement, but the technology is incredible, absolutely incredible, the technology. But
and even their high beat movements are right there too with the Swiss, no problem.
But you don't see them on that list of prestigious watch makers, unfortunately, although obviously they'd like to change that. And the other thing with micro brands, I know certainly with being a watch YouTuber and as well being a watch fan, you go to watch events, I've interacted with many of these people who make these micro brands. Jimmy Collins at Collins Watches, Ryan and Reagan at Vega, Dave, who's making that watch in Manchester, my hometown of Manchester, my home city of Manchester, guy at Seals Watches. You don't really get that one-to-one interaction with the people that are actually making the design choices. So that's one of the other advantages. Have you guys had similar experiences?
Yeah, Sam. So I've got a couple Skerpa divers I've bought, and I remember interacting with Paul. He's a commercial diver in the North Sea, and he would say, "My wife is going to ship these. I'm on the, I'm about to go on a dive, or I'm doing my decompression or whatever." I mean, it was pretty neat, right? I mean, he's really doing it. He'd post videos of his dives. And then I've got Butler Watch Company is a small micro brand. He's a commercial airline pilot. He helped me put together a watch purchase for my squadron with a custom engraving. He was really a pleasure to work with as well. And actually, I helped him modify a design. So I told him that the chronograph register for 30 minutes, the 5, 15, and 25 mark should be a little longer so that the eye can pick up, the little bit of the difference from 0 to 10, just to have a nice longer mark at 5 between his first model and his second. And he immediately did it. So, it's like there's a piece of me in that second generation of his chronograph. And that kind of personal contact and real stories, real people emailing you back, and they're enthusiastic, you're enthusiastic, and it's just kind of a great experience. You really can't get that with the large brand.
Yeah, I've had a couple of interactions with some folks that wanted to do Kickstarter watches, and but we're also getting a microbrand started, and what do you want to make, sort of like that, opening it up to the enthusiast and saying like, well, we love these old retro chronographs. There's a couple of companies, or there's one company I can think of that created a 60s style chronograph, and they were considering putting a mechanical movement in it, or a mecha quartz, or and sort of hemming and hawing over that. You feel like you're a part of it. I mean, not all Kickstarter stuff, but definitely the Microbrand stuff where you get that email from them and they're, oh, we're looking at this design, and oh, I like the red with this, and you kind of feel part of it, and you're certainly not going to get that from the design department at Swatch.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it, to have them interact with the enthusiasts. Obviously, they have to be very careful of that, because they don't want the watch enthusiasts to be like the video game enthusiasts who are, they're ruthless, aren't they, to the game creators?
They really are. Yeah, they really are. But I think the thing there is, with the games, you have the ability to change that afterwards. So I play a lot of, I play PC games, and I'm a gamer, and yeah, you're absolutely right. They can, the group can destroy stuff because, oh, we wanted it a certain way. Well, let me go in and change it. Oh, well, this doesn't work. Well, we can completely redo the gear system, and completely mess everyone's levels up. But with a watch, with a physical product, you have the ability to say, do people want this? Is this going to sell? You get on Instagram, and I see it. I see a handful of these microbrands do this all the time. They'll post up a teaser picture, and it'll immediately have 1,000 likes, and there you go, marketing department closed. You're set. Well,
we're a picky bunch too, right? I mean, we'll see 30 posts that say, oh, I wish it was a little, I wish it wasn't 42 millimeter, and then I'll chime in saying 20 millimeter lugs are bust, and then someone else will say, if it has a date, I don't want it. We all have our things, but I think they are at least able to pulse the crowd and figure out what what the majority want, or if they should offer an option.
Yeah, and I mean, if I had a piece of advice for microbrands, I'd be like, don't get lost in the trying to make a watch for everyone, because it would be 41 millimeters, 20 mil lugs, sapphire crystal, and have Arabic, then just be just perfect. Try to shoot for that.
Yeah, I feel like Bulliver, for me, they like to make reissues of their classic watches for the fans, but then they listen. I think they listen too much, because they always make them oversized for me. I always think, oh, you could have just kept them as the. But yeah, and I feel when they don't listen to the fans as well, or sometimes this is the power of watch YouTubers as well. I think that they can certainly. I know of one micro brand that I'm sure Jody at Just One More Watches review might have put the end to it because I never heard of it again. But I was I don't know if you have emails from Spinnaker, but they must be sat on a boatload of those titanium watches they made. Because I wasn't, I mean, I love Spinnaker watches. They make some great watches, but they made this titanium watch, which looks beautiful. But they put this, Chris, you probably know the reference, but it's like a Miyota movement, but that doesn't hack.
Oh, the 8000 series, yeah.
Yeah, so every reviewer, like, reviewed it and they're like, this is a fantastic watch, but it doesn't hack. I think it wasn't one that I reviewed, and now daily I'm getting emails, and they must have released this watch 18 months ago. So yeah, you have got to be careful as a micro brand, I think, for sure.
But at the same time, if you're jumping into it right now, the micro brands, and Sam, we talked about this maybe 3-4 weeks ago, for Seiko to come out with stuff that still has mineral glass, that's yes, it hacks, but it's still it doesn't have a screw down crown anymore, things like that. Whereas microbrands just stepping up the game, where it's like now when I look at watches, like, of course it's 100 meters water resistant, of course it's sapphire, of course it's screw down crown, of course it's, what I mean? It's like a check, boxes, this sort of thing. So they're doing a great job there, to stay in that market and make the commenters happy.
Yeah, it's funny. That was my argument with Omega, wasn't it? That James Bond, that flipping titanium watch. There's that, is it the Hayton watch brand that they've got like a titanium watch for maybe the $300 mark, and the case on that looks fantastic. I refuse to believe that Omega. I mean, they might have made the mesh strap in titanium, but anyway, that's beside the point. But okay, well, we're getting close to the end here. Any of you have any last comments on our micro brand discussion?
No, but if anyone from Marathon Watch Company is listening, I'll say it the way I say it all the time. They need to do the Navigator in stainless steel. If you see any posts on watch forums about this watch, you'll see people bemoan the fact that they use a carbon case, which is practical and cheap and light, and I do love it. But if they made that in steel, it would be my one watch for life, and they just need to do it. And I did contact them on the Facebook page and asked them. They said they'll take it under advisement, but for the love, please, they just need to do it.
We'll use the platform.
Yes,
we'll amplify.
It's my mission.
It's definitely a funny one, that, isn't it? They think that polymer is fragile on a watch, but they would happily have a firearm that was.
Oh, it's indestructible. I just want it to be. I kind of want to go throwback a little bit to the old school version, and I just think if I go flying, I'll wear the polymer version. But for wearing about and everything, it would be the perfect watch for me if they had a steel one. This would be a dream.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. Let us know over on the Facebook group what you thought of this discussion. Please join Casual Watch Talk, the new Facebook group. I would just like to thank TEEJ for joining as our special guest today.
Thank you, Sam. It was awesome. Thanks so much.
And Chris, thank you for being my co-host as always.
Thanks, Sam.
As always, guys, we really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.